Welcome back, everyone. Snapping around. We are recording this the night before trade deadline, so bear with us on some of this because it's probably going to get anything we might say in this episode might get old real fast. But just kind of want to start off it's been a pretty busy NHL season so far in terms of trades. We've had a pair of big January trades, the Rantanen and the JT Miller trades. And then recently in this last week, we've had some busy action. Of the teams that have been the most busiest, the Panthers kind of making some minor deals, but making a big splash as well. We'll touch on that here in a bit. The Tampa Bay Lightning, as usual, they're making splashes. One I want to start on, though, the Colorado Avalanche making going back to making a trade with the New York Rangers, bringing in Ryan Lindgren and Jimmy Vesey, along with a prospect, Hank Kempf, sending out Calvin DeHaan, Juuso Parssinen, and 2 draft picks. Just, Trav, where do you kind of sit on this trade and just the overall thought of what this means for the Avs here as they keep pushing for a better playoff spot?
Yeah, I think it's good in terms of bolstering up the depth. I think Lindgren maybe fills that 5-6 role a little bit better than DeHaan and maybe Shillington as well. I know, you know what, I haven't watched a lot of Rangers games this year. I know a lot of Rangers fans say he's been not very great in the last year or two. I guess, which is maybe a little concerning, but I mean, he's not expected to, I think, play a very large role on this team. I think he's there to kind of solidify the top 6, and then you scoop up Jimmy Vesey too on a bottom 6 forward, that's kind of ever changing for the Avalanche, depending on injuries and stuff. So it's good just to get him there in case of the the injury bug in the playoffs as some kind of insurance. But I did like Juuso Parssinen. I just felt that his role with the Avs was, I don't know, a little off-putting. I didn't think his play was bad, but I just didn't really know where he was, slotted into that lineup. And I know he was kind of up and down it, but I kind of said that when he was brought in from Nashville that I didn't really know what the Avs intentions were with him. And obviously they just used him as kind of a chip to kind of move ahead further. So yeah, I guess that's really all I have on the trade as of right now.
You kind of brought up Lindgren being a 5'6". I see him maybe more as a 4'5" defenseman, but one thing, Justin, that Lindgren brings that the Avs don't have a lot of is a physical play. How much is this almost in response to Josh Manson not being that healthy this year and the Avs just needing that element on the blue line?
Yeah, I kind of think it's a direct correlation to not being kind of aware of what's going to happen with Manson. Good news is that he's back in the lineup tonight against San Jose. So he's missed a lot of time this year. Like, I don't know if whatever it is just going to linger on all season. But, if that is the case, then it's easier to play him maybe less minutes when you have Lindgren in, and you can kind of, split whatever sort of role that you have for them two kind of together. So like, Malinsky and Gerard both have somebody that's a bit more physical. Lindgren's a little bit younger, probably a bit more mobile than DeHaan was, which probably fits the Avs a bit more. I know he's been pretty banged up the last couple years, and all this talk of underlying numbers being really bad, but that's a totally different organization. He was playing a bit above his kind of weight there, playing with Fox all the time. He's not going to have to worry about those type of minutes, those type of pairings here. Like, he's just kind of coming in to settle the bottom two pairs, get some PK time away from Makar and Taves probably too, which I think is another big thing, that he's pretty responsible that way. And yeah, like I said, like, we had that weekend where they played Nashville and St. Louis, and I felt they just kind of got pushed around a little bit. Like, there was really no physicality, and I kind of like bringing a guy like Lindgren in. I don't know if Vesey's that sort of guy too. He's a big kid, but he's filling in for Wood tonight. So, I mean, that's a cheaper option if you want to start looking at a Wood replacement, because he basically doesn't do anything out there anyways. So, all in all, I'm pretty happy with the trade. Like, I don't really care about a second round pick or a fourth or whatever they gave up, to be honest. It's kind of looking to improve your team right now with, the core you have.
And both those picks are conditional too. Like, the Avs have multiple in this upcoming draft. So, I mean, McFarland and Sakic in the last 5 years haven't been afraid to move picks. So why would they be afraid now? But bring up Vesey, and like you said, he's in for Wood. I kind of like the addition of him because you said he's a Wood replacement, but he's also a guy that just pushes guys like Wood and maybe LOC down to more of a fourth line role. Maybe more their style of play fits better, because you are kind of asking on this Avs roster, you're asking those guys to be somewhat secondary scoring capable, and they're just not quite that. VC is a little more offensively gifted. Plus, he's a guy that I think slots into the top six a lot better than LOC or even Parsonen did, just because of his offensive abilities. And he's also a guy that he skates pretty well for his size. So overall, I think we're all in agreement. It's a good trade for Colorado. It's one you kind of said it, Justin, they needed to make in light of how the season's gone for Josh Manson and just how the rest of that Avs blue line looks, being slightly undersized or on the smaller side and a little easier to push around. Another team that I brought them up, Florida's been active this week. They've made, I think, about 4 trades in the last 5 days. Most of them minor, but the big splash they made was last Saturday, the day after this Avalanche trade. Seth Jones is officially going to the Sunrise State, and in return, the Blackhawks get Spencer Knight, 23-year-old goalie, and a conditional first-round pick. I think it shifts to 2027 if the Panthers don't have their 2026 first-rounder this year. Justin, I'll let you kind of go on this because you've been saying it for the last few weeks of trading young, slightly unproven players for guys that are NHL caliber players. What's your thought here? I mean, Florida's given up a young goalie, kind of the goalie of the future, but they're getting a somewhat steady right shot defenseman for cheaper than what his contract reads.
Yeah. To be honest, I said it right when it happened in the group chat. I like the deal for both sides of this. Seth Jones, he was basically talking his way out of Chicago the last few games before he got traded, and it sounded like there's really only 2 teams he was really going to accept to go to, and it was Florida or Dallas. And I guess Dallas said no thanks. So, Florida was able to make a move to get, $2.5 million retained per year until I think it's like 2030 he's signed till. That's pretty big. Like, him as a $7 million defenseman, I think fits in a lot better than him making 9.5. Clearly, he's also going to be playing in Florida with just a way better team structured wise, but he won't be that top pairing guy there either. Like he'll kind of slide in well in the second pair, probably better for him right now, at least until he gets kind of comfortable there. And then, trading away Knight, I think is tough because, they took him pretty high in the draft and they wanted, him to be the goalie of the future there. Obviously, some things his personal life took him kind of off the rails there for a little bit. He's finally made his way back and he's been really solid this year as Bobrovsky's backup. But, when you look at it from Florida, you're in the window now. 2 years from now, 3 years from now, when Bobrovsky's done, you don't really know where you're going to be at. And even if you're good, guys are going to want to go to Florida anyway. So you can probably trade or sign a guy to come there and play, be your number one goalie. As for now, like if you can get, a guy to solidify your top 4D while you're trying to make another run. And, he's signed past this year. Like you've got a couple runs with him and Bobrovsky's still hot. I like it in that sort of sense. And then like for Chicago, what's not to like? You got rid of a guy that didn't want to be there, who's making way too much for how he's playing, and you get your goaltender of the future, which was a spot that they're really lacking. Like it's always good to kind of solidify that spot when you're in a rebuild. And I think they kind of have a guy that he can stay there for the next, 10 to 12 years easily and be their guy.
I think too, bringing Jones in is kind of insurance for depending what happens with Aaron Ekblad this offseason in Florida. Whether he signs, it's great. If he doesn't, they kind of have his replacement. But Trav, Justin kind of brought it up, like just Jones going to a team like Florida and the structure they play in. Are we more likely to see him kind of revert back to what he was more in Columbus and Nashville? Or is he still going to kind of be this defenseman that just eats a lot of minutes but doesn't really do a whole lot?
Yeah, that's a coin toss for sure. If he's gonna, revert back, there's no better opportunity than right now being in Florida, who are probably still the favorites in the East at this given moment. But I don't know. He's been like it's been such a long while where Seth Jones has brought a lot of excitement to his game. Chicago. There's no real winning playing in Chicago, but even in Columbus, his career kind of started to go downhill a little bit, and those Columbus teams weren't that great either. But he goes from probably the worst team in the league to a Stanley Cup favorite once again. So yeah, it's I don't know. Like I'm a 50-50 on that. The one thing I will kind of just add to this discussion, and I'm sure we might bounce into it here in a minute, but I could see Jones having a tough time against depending on who they play in the first round, but the two favorites in the East may play in the first round in the Lightning and the Panthers. I can very well see Jones maybe having a tough time with the Lightning. Just the way that their top guys are. I think Jones' downfall is, I think, a speedy and a quick game, which the Lightning kind of bring. So, it's unfortunate that we might get the Eastern Conference Final in the first round.
Well, you brought them up, so let's move into them. The Lightning, they kind of responded to the Panthers upgrading their blue line and decided to go and upgrade their forward group. Bringing back old Yanni Goure. I mean, he was with them when they won their 2 cups. Kind of a casualty of the cap and then the Seattle expansion draft. Also coming with them, though, is Oliver Bjorkstrand. The Lightning sent out their 2026 and 2027 first-round draft picks along with Michael Eismont. Basically, for the Lightning, they don't care about any type of future outside of the current season because they don't have a first-round pick until 2028 now. But just bringing in guys like Goure and Bjorkstrand is such a huge get for them and very on brand for the Lightning. Trav, you kind of said it, like the Lightning play a bit of a quicker game. Does this almost like, is this enough to vault the Lightning into maybe consideration for taking this Atlantic division, which has all of a sudden become a 3-team race because they've added the depth of Goure and Bjorkstrand to that already roster that's just been rolling recently?
I hate to say it, but I can still see the Leafs winning it just because they're a regular season team. I'm gonna throw my vote to the Leafs winning this division. I would like to see one of the other 2 win it just to avoid the Battle of. Don't get me wrong, I would love the Battle of Florida, but I think given where those 2 teams are right now, they are my 1A, 1B in the East right now in terms of who I think is coming out of the East. I would just like to see them meet at a later stage. I think that's just better for hockey.
Yeah, it's 100% fair. Me, at least in the second round, just not the first. But like Justin, does bringing in a guy like Bjorkstrand just not scream kind of a throwback to the 2022 or 2021 deadlines when Breezeball brought in guys like Coleman and Goudreau, just especially a guy like maybe Blake Coleman is who I'm thinking of more, just a guy that has a higher offensive upside than what he's really shown in the league, but is more like very capable to play a checking role. Like, is this a situation where the Lightning might unlock something in Bjorkstrand here?
I would think so, right? Like they kind of usually do with guys like this, and it's going to be far and away the best team that Bjorkstrand's played on. Like, he's in Columbus forever. Like, had a couple good years there, especially when they had Panarin and Bobrovsky kicking around, and Seattle's been very so hit and miss every year. Now you're kind of in a team that just kind of has a winning culture, winning mentality, and I'm sure he'll shine to it. And big thing is he's still there next year too. So, paying what they did, I think makes a lot of sense. Like I said, with Florida, you can't really worry about your future assets when, all your guys are kind of in their prime win now and starting to age out. Like, guys like Hedman and McDonough and not Kucherov's not that old, but a lot of these guys, like, in a couple years, their bodies will start to slow down and they won't really be in it anymore. And, the first round pick from 2025 isn't going to help them get over any sort of hump then, like as much as it getting rid of it now for these guys. So, I like the move. I didn't know they'd be getting both those guys. I thought they'd maybe get like a Gord and then maybe another defenseman. But the fact they, address kind of 2 top 9 spots in their forward core in one trade is huge. Like, so much depth up front. Like, probably just be able to score at will with any team, and it's going to make that Atlantic race interesting to watch. These next 6 weeks, is that what we got?
Yeah, only about 5-6 weeks left. So, but yeah, like you said, it's playing on a team, just the offensive capabilities that the Lightning have puts less pressure on Bjorkstrand. So we'll see how it works for him. Just quick touch on another of the busy teams like the New York Rangers. They made the trade with Colorado. They sent out Riley Smith for Brendan Brisson and a third-round draft pick from Vegas. And then they flipped that third-round pick to Vancouver for Carson Soucy. Just is Chris Drury kind of getting ahead of the curve in terms of the bubble teams this year at the deadline, just being creative in how to remake his roster? Because he's been pretty active here in the last week.
Yeah, definitely. I think JC said it when it happened, but the way that roster looked once Miller came in was just it's so weird how one player and that roster looked completely different. I think in terms of all the trades this year, I don't think there was one that was maybe more fitting than that one, and I would go as far to say that was more fitting than Blackwood coming to Colorado, as much as that was necessary. I just think the Rangers at that point in this year needed a foot in the ass, and that's exactly what JT Miller was bringing over to that squad, because they've been pretty good since he got there. And I don't think they're looking back. I think they're gonna find a way to get in here, and I think they're gonna cause a lot of issues when they do get in.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up, Trav. The Avs are probably right there with the Rangers in terms of the number of moves made this season just to remake a roster. But you could argue that the JT Miller going to the Rangers is the most substantial in terms of impact out of all these trades. But like Justin, as Drury and McFarland kind of set the blueprint for what we should expect for how the trade deadline might fold out tomorrow?
I have no idea, man. That's a big question, man. I don't know what's going on with this trade deadline. It seems like things could go off the rails here kind of at any moment. I don't really like. I get what the Rangers are doing and kind of moving expiring assets, but then they kind of get an expiring asset in Soucy. So they've kind of been going in kind of a horizontal direction with this. Like they're not really going up, they're not really going down, other than the Miller thing. But these last ones, you got rid of Vesey and Lindgren, then you bring in Parson and DeHaan and now Soucy. I think probably a lot of that has to do with Fox that's going to be out for a long time. They've got 14 million cap space at this deadline. They're tied with Ottawa for the second wild card spot. They have a fair bit of assets. They don't have first this year, but they have first next year and a bunch of mid-round picks. I kind of wonder if he's planning something a little bigger to maybe get over that hump. I don't know. I wouldn't want to be a team that wins the division that has to play a team with Shesterkin, possibly a healthy Fox coming back. Zibanejad has been actually really good since JT Miller came back. I don't know what really kind of got him going, but is him getting better line mate or different line mates now that Miller's there. But the whole team has started to kind of get a spark with that, like Trav said. So I'm kind of interested to see what they do, because I didn't really realize till I just looked how much space they've got. But like you said, I don't know about this deadline, man. You just hear all these things. I thought for sure Rantanen wasn't going to go. Now it sounds like he could go. Sounds like Marchand's going to be moved. That just, all these things. It could just be rumors, people looking for views and bait and stuff. But I don't know. There's so many teams in the mix right now.
It might not feel like it, but spring's right around the corner. Know how you can tell? Golfers are hitting the links, and we have some tournaments to talk about. And if you want to do more than just talk, put your money where your mouth is. Get in on all the tee to green action with DraftKings Sportsbook. From Thursday's opening round through the closing round Sunday, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered with tournament props, live betting odds, and so much more. Right now, Jake Knapp leads the field at a plus 330 for Cognizant Classic 2025. You can also find Ricky Fowler, Jordan Spieth among the top winners for betting. Here's something special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice.
Oh, that's just it. And that kind of good segue into our next bit here. Like the Rangers probably would have been a great pick for this bit between any one of us in terms of the mystique or the intrigue that they're going to bring this deadline. None of us picked them for some reason because Justin, you just illustrated they might be the most interesting team like at the deadline this year, but let's get into the teams we've kind of picked out ourselves to discuss. Trav, I'll let you start with this one. I believe you're thinking the Ducks are going to be the most interesting team here for the deadline. Why is that?
I think just because they've been kind of swirling around the center of rumors in terms of being, sellers, or I don't know if sellers is the right word, but obviously there's talks of John Gibson getting moved. Zegras has been a year-long thing. I just find them the most interesting because they're only 6 points back of the Flames. They've kind of made a late push here. They've been playing pretty good hockey lately. And, the four teams ahead of them in the Blues, the Canucks, the Flames, and Utah, that are all fighting for that last wild card spot, have all been just pretty mediocre, just kind of treading the water as of late, which has kind of allowed Anaheim to slide into the equation. So I think, maybe from an outside perspective, you're kind of like, oh yeah, like, I don't know, like Anaheim might be sellers here at the deadline, whatever, kind of counting them out. But I don't know. I think if they maybe, I don't know, maybe made a little sneak depth trade, maybe, it's hard to say like what they need, but it's just, I don't think they're going to be, wheeling and dealing here at the deadline, or in terms of like shipping a lot of guys out, because if they go on a hot streak here, especially with how mid the other teams fighting for that last spot have been as of late, like, I mean, I don't think Anaheim's going to make the playoffs, but I just find it pretty interesting that they are right there.
You said like small trades, but like they've already shipped out Dumoulin. Is this not like, so you're more thinking that Anaheim's intriguing for this deadline because of they've pulled themselves out of the sellers market and are just into that mushy middle of teams where you're not sure what they're doing. And I guess just because of how young Anaheim is, they can really go any which way they want this deadline.
That's exactly what I'm getting at. Yeah.
Like, I think they'd be a team too. Like those, what a lot of insiders and analysts call like the hockey trades, which fucking every trade is a hockey trade when you look at it. But like the player for player swaps is maybe something I see Anaheim doing. Or they're like, if they trade Gibson, they're going to probably take those assets and flip them for a player that they can, is going to help them this year. Justin, you had what? Dallas is your most kind of intriguing team for the deadline. Like, they've already made a big move in bringing in Granlund and Ceci. I mean, is it more because Heiskanen's not in the lineup here for the foreseeable future that makes them kind of an interesting team?
Yeah, that's a big reason why I thought that. The right side of their defense is pretty suspect looking at for the most part. You have Dumba, Ceci, and Lyubushkin, and I know they just traded for Ceci, and they've kind of got Dumba signed up for a couple years. Same with Lyubushkin, but I wonder about a team that kind of, I think they were favorites or close to favorites going into that Western Conference final last year against Edmonton, bowed out in 6, and you kind of come into this year with pretty high expectations with young guys making the jump, Wyatt Johnson, Stay Coven. You have the goal, like one of the best goaltenders in the league in Ottinger. And, now all of a sudden, Seguin was playing so well with Duchesne on that line with Marchment, and he's gone down now. And then, you don't even know when Heiskanen's coming back. Doesn't sound like until at least playoffs. They don't even have his cap money on LTIR yet. So, like, as of now, they got 4.5 in space. If they put Heiskanen's on there, that's almost an extra $9 million. So, like, they're looking at 13 possibly to play with. Like I said, they have a few of these young guys that could be intriguing. No first rounder this year, but they do have one next year. I just wonder if they try to take a big swing. I'm not necessarily saying on defense. It could be on forward too. Like, I don't know, man. Like, could you see like a Rantanen being traded there? Like, Dallas has the sort of like young guys or NHL ready guys that if Carolina wants to go that route, that they could certainly entertain. But I just see them not being this quiet as they have been since the Granlund trade, especially if they kind of got aspirations to get over the hump that they kind of got stuck at last year.
The defense is probably the biggest area I think that Dallas would need to improve. But I think with Dallas, you're just seeing a team that, like, everyone saw the transition from the Ben and Seguin stars to the Heiskanen and the Robertson, the Hintz, and then supplemented with the Johnsons, Stankovens, the Borks. But I mean, Hintz and Robertson have kind of taken a step back from what everyone thought they would be or should be this year. And it's just put more pressure on those younger guys like Johnston and Stankoven and Bork to step up. And those guys just aren't ready yet. Like, they need another year or two in this league to really transition and take over, like, be the core guys of a team. I think that's maybe been the issue in Dallas this season, is just the guys that should be that, like, are kind of your transition players from one core to the next aren't performing the way that you expected them to. And it's hurting the Stars a bit. They obviously have enough talent on that team to be this good anyway. But I definitely think like the Heiskanen one, and I mean the whole LTIR loophole, if they want to play it with that, frees up a big bunch of cap space for them to take a big swing. So yeah, they're going to be a fun team to watch. We're sticking in the West. I had the St. Louis Blues, and I think a lot of this just comes from because a week ago there was so much talk that Braden Shen was going to be traded out of St. Louis, and there wasn't really a talk of who, mostly the Leafs, just because, like you said earlier, Justin, like it's for clicks. Like rumors like that are easy for clicks. I just think since the Four Nations and like just how Calgary and Vancouver have floundered, St. Louis has all of a sudden found themselves right in the mix of that wild card spot. There's still a team just with no true direction. Like their older guys aren't old enough to really sell off and like start a full teardown. And they don't really have a lot of their young prospects haven't quite even dipped a toe in the NHL yet. But I'm just curious, like, how much does Doug Armstrong add to this group, or how much does he tinker with selling? Because we've seen him sell before when his team is in a wild card spot or a playoff spot. I just think back to, I don't even remember how long ago that was now, but the Kevin Shattenkirk to Washington trade. Like, this is a GM that's been known to have itchy fingers around the deadline at times and has been known to look at a team that looks competitive and say, nope, not our year. I'm going to make one or two bigger moves just to kind of focus on next year, and that's it. And I think now I heard today Parayko's out for a long while, possibly the season with an injury. So that might even throw a bit of a wrinkle, because if Armstrong wants to reward the group with how they've played, he kind of has to go and get a defenseman to replace Parayko. So if that's the case, then that just adds a more interesting ripple into this deadline when you add in St. Louis being maybe big game buyers. We kind of already touched on, the Rangers would be probably the most interesting team in the East. Off the top of our heads here, quick, what's maybe another team in the East, since we touched on three in the West? Who's maybe another team that maybe brings a lot of either intrigue or just mystery around the trade deadline here?
I'll jump in quick here on that. I'll say the Devils, just because Jack Hughes just got announced that he's done for the season. Devils are obviously going to make the playoffs, barring a tremendous collapse in the last stretch of the season here. But your number one center's gone for the year, no matter what. So I gotta say that eyes are on them tomorrow to see what they do to kind of throw a Band-Aid on that.
Is that one where do the Devils have to almost pull a Tampa or a Florida and throw multiple first-round picks to fix that? Because their core is young enough; they don't really need first-round picks.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I think that would be foolish. Just because, their core is young, that that they're gonna be back. So I wouldn't give up the farm just to try and replace Hughes, because their window is very large right now.
Yeah, the rumors out there now too. I think it started today. They might be in on the Rantanen situation, and it's been rumored too that if he can, there's talks of a sign and trade extension here. So maybe the Devils can offer something for Carolina, though that might be a tougher trade in division rivals and both fighting for the same playoff spot. So, Justin, you got an Eastern team here quick that might add a little bit of extra wrinkle to the trade deadline?
Yeah, I want to say Carolina. We've been kind of beating that horse pretty dead, and we all kind of know where we're at with that one. But let's go with the one that's probably has the biggest mysterious GM kind of running their team, the Islanders. Never really know what Lou's going to do. You think he's going to get rid of somebody, and then he'll probably sign them to like a 6-year deal. But he's got a couple interesting trade chips in Nelson and Palmieri. There's been a lot of Nelson talk the last, I would say, week or so. for a team that kind of has lost its direction, and like I said on a few podcasts ago, I think is like a pretty mid team. Like, I think with the prices, the way that, what guys are going for right now, I think you'd be kind of doing the franchise a disservice if you don't kind of like just kind of reset things right now, get what you can for Nelson, get what you can for Palmieri. If there's somebody else kind of on this roster that has other teams kind of intrigued, I say you might as well do it, and then kind of reset this off season, use some of the cap space you've got from these trades, bring in some guys that can work with Barzal or Horvat a little bit more, maybe younger guys, and then kind of go from there. Like, Patty was like a very like offensive minded guy, so try to start going in that sort of route, and I think that would be a good start here at this deadline.
Yeah, like we kind of went, like you said, we went on them a few pods ago. Just they need to do something to shake up that organization as a whole. So, and yeah, I think they do probably hold the biggest chip in terms of outside of Carolina and Rantanen. Nelson's probably the biggest rental chip out there. So, last one here before we wrap up. We'll be somewhat quick on this. Who's your top target that you want the Avalanche to get here before 3 p.m. tomorrow?
Matt Barzal.
Realistic?
Yeah, let's be a little more realistic. That might be a June trade.
I don't know.
You got someone in mind, Justin?
Yeah, I just talked about it. I think Brock Nelson probably be like he's attainable, and he slot into that 2C pretty well. Other than that, I really like as an actual like attainable someone that is likely to be dealt tomorrow. Like, I would say, I don't think he is, but obviously bringing back O'Reilly would be nice too. And then if you're kind of looking elsewhere, like I'd probably look at the Bruins and I don't know, maybe try to get like two guys like a Coyle, a Marchand, a Brazo, something along those lines, just to kind of, especially with Coyle and Brazo, you kind of get a bit more size. Like you can, and guys that can add some nice depth. It just depends what you're getting or what you're giving up. I don't really want to give up a middle stat for one like a Coyle, but I probably would give up a middle stat for a Nelson now, and then you go back to drawing board this fucking summer for 2C. But yeah, just something along those lines.
You got an answer yet, Trevor?
No, I got nothing that's realistic, to be honest.
Kind of go complete opposite coast of you there, Justin. I kind of want them to maybe get Jared McCann. If you're going for more of a replacement type, like swap player for player with middle stat, obviously you have to add in maybe a draft pick sweetener or prospect sweetener into there. But I think McCann he plays with a nice pace, and he does have a bit. He's not the biggest guy, but he plays with a bit of an edge too that would just fit nicely behind McKinnon.
Yeah, I will say since Nuke has come back, that second line just kind of has a whole new identity.
You brought up rethinking the 2C in the summer if you get Nelson and he just walks in free agency. Like how much, if you're McFarland and Nuke is going to be like good for 70 plus games next year, how comfortable would you be just allowing Callum Ritchie to kind of play in the middle of Nuke and Drouin as a second line?
I'm fine to start it, but I'm not fine to and I'm not married to that idea. Like, I read today again another rumor that like possibly Horvat could be out there. I don't believe that, but
That's a lot of money.
it's a lot of money. But I mean, you want to like just trying to think of some guys that can fill that 2C hole. I'm just not sure. Like I'd almost rather them load up maybe like the third line, kind of keep things as they are. Like get another depth scorer for that third line, get someone moved down to the fourth. Like I think you can go wrong with that, but I mean, I think it's going to be hard to find 2C in the next, 17 hours?
Something like that, yeah.
But like I said, I don't know. I think Nelson would be just fine though, and then you figure it out again, back to the drawing board.
Yeah. So Trav, let's go back to your Barzal though. Just Justin kind of got me thinking, not married full-time next season to a Callum Ritchie, flanking Nuke as a second-line player. How comfortable are you guys if you give up put a package together of maybe a Middlestat, a Ritchie, a Guliev, and maybe a second-round pick, trying to get Barzal for that?
And
like, is Barzal the type of player, like, obviously he's the talent, but is he, even with his injury history, is he the type of player you give up a Callum Ritchie for?
Yeah, I think so.
yeah.
I just want to see Barzal in our system, the way that he was meant to play the game.
That'd be like Netcash in the Avs system on steroids.
Barzal was meant for the Colorado system, not the Islanders.
That's
why I want him in Colorado, because we would truly see the electric player I think that he was born to be. But like you said, given his injury history, maybe that ship has sailed already.
Like I said, I honestly, come June, July, I wouldn't mind if there was a rumor of talks heating up between the Avs and the Islanders around Barzal. So you kind of said, Trev, his style fits just seamlessly with Colorado. But we'll see how everything unfolds tomorrow. Obviously, if you're listening to this, it's might even be well past trade deadline. So a lot of what we just said could be for nothing. But hey, that is what it is, especially this time of year. So we'll come back next week and just break down a lot of the action that's going to hopefully happen, and just some of these other trades that we didn't get to today that have already happened either today or earlier this week too. So thanks for tuning in to Snapping Around. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, give us a like. On YouTube, hit subscribe. Thanks again, everyone, and catch you all next week.